This video is brought to you by Project foundEd. Project foundEd is a community of EdTech founders that aim to make the EdTech industry easier to navigate through collective voice and data. Learn more at projectfounded.org. Welcome to this session of EdTech Recharge Studio. My name is Dr. Kripa Sundar. I'm the founder and lead consultant at EdTech Recharge. In this session, we talk about two words that I am super excited about: impact and efficacy. So what is impact? Great question, especially in the education space where a lot of entrepreneurs are driven by the impact, the change they can create in the world. It's really important for us to take a minute and step back and ask our questions. What do we mean when we say impact? Now, impact can mean different things to different people, and there are definitely different ways to categorize them. Now, impact can be defined by breadth or depth. How many people we're impacting on a singular outcome, or are we impacting a smaller community on a number of different outcomes with the big idea of systemic change or overall reform? Very challenging in whichever path we go, and I don't think there's a right or a wrong way. But either way, we need to be crystal clear on what we define as impact, both in the short term as well as in the long term. Great! If that's impact, what's efficacy, you ask? Often entrepreneurs who speak with us have the two, impact and efficacy, always go hand in hand or sometimes synonymous. There is one very critical difference between impact and efficacy. Efficacy is the measurement of impact. Efficacy research can tell us if a product is effective at improving a specified outcome at a specified point in time, given that particular product configuration. And that is critical to remember. Oftentimes, a lot of early stage or super early stage entrepreneurs would come to us and say, hey, can you give us or can you help us with our efficacy research? I'd love to, but I don't want to take $50,000 from you if your product is still in development. If you're going to be refining your product in the near future, it might be better to pause and wait. That doesn't mean research can't impact your product in different ways. And through the rest of this video, you might learn what are the other ways that research can inform. Impact is a process. It starts with the critical but often overlooked step of defining impact very clearly in very specific terms. Then comes monitoring impact to ensure that we're on the right path. The third one is the final golden efficacy study, or evaluating our impact. One of my favorite projects to do at EdTech Recharge is to help entrepreneurs define their impact. It can start with a simple question of, what change are you hoping to make? Often entrepreneurs have the best intentions, and that often means multiple outcomes. And we all know what that means. Too many cooks can spoil the broth, especially when you don't have the funds to back that kind of impact. But here are 5 reasons why you should be defining your impact before going ahead. Number 1, defining our impact helps us set metrics in place to efficiently monitor our impact and eventually be able to evaluate what our efficacy is. Number 2, it helps us find investor compatibility. Funding and investors come in all sorts and shapes and forms. So how do you know who's a good fit? Being able to clearly articulate your impact can really help you think through that process. A third reason to define your impact is that it helps you articulate your pitch. Often you have 90 seconds to 5 minutes to really seal the deal. And what does that entail? How am I to know who you are? Well, often the process of evaluating or defining your impact is worked on using a logic model, which would really help you articulate your pitch. Everything from what are the key features to what do your users do and what's your intended outcome. Coming from a business background, this fourth reason might be my all-time favorite. Defining my impact can really help me monitor my resources and use them strategically. I want to put money where I know the product's going to make an impact. I want to hire the right people who have the skill sets that can push my product towards the impact that I'm aiming for. In other words, a fourth reason to define your impact is that it can help you invest your resources in strategic ways. A fifth and final for this video reason to define your impact is that it can help you find product market fit. Think about the other reasons that we've shared to define your impact. Pull them all together and you start realizing that defining your impact can really help you define who your market is. Let's go into a little more detail. I have 3 rules for impact definition. The first one is doing our homework. Building our product, or if your product's already built, thinking through your product features to identify what is present for impact and what is present for logistics. Second one's to cut the fluff. Especially in EdTech, it is so easy to get carried away by these seductive details, these bells and whistles, but it's important for us to pull that back and really focus on the core. So cut the fluff. Focus on your homework. Both of these can really help you move significantly towards your impact if they're in sync with your product development strategy. Sketch out your MVP based on the impact you want to make. Do you have all of your core impact features? Maybe your MVP is done. Or perhaps are you building your impact across multiple years? If so, think through, what does your basic version need to have? What does your vision for 3 years hence look like? And what difference in impact can those features have? Everything doesn't have to be built today. And defining your impact can help you find out what is necessary today and what can wait. Speaking of monitoring impact, there are many different ways to monitor our impact. The most common way is data-driven. It's very intense with regular data collections, perhaps even collection of data used in the background of your product. It could be in-product surveys. It could be external customer experience surveys that you send across. Data could come in different shapes and forms, depending on what impact you've decided to pursue. And perhaps this is the most common way that we monitor our impact, especially because it's often encouraged by funders, whether government or otherwise. But there are some other ways, or 2 common other ways that the impact could be monitored. One is using an impact scorecard, which is essentially a rubric of the outcomes that we're hoping for, and identifying how far along have we progressed to this. If you are a new entrepreneur just sketching out your idea, this might be a great way for you to think through your product. A third option, which I've honestly seen more commonly in nonprofits than EdTech, is using a mission alignment strategy. We have this overarching mission. Does every project we take sync with our mission? Now for everybody's favorite of evaluating impact, or efficacy studies. There are multiple research designs, and we have another video talking about some different designs and methods of research. But in this video, we'll focus on the classification of efficacy studies as is done by ESSA, or the What Works Clearinghouse, focusing on tiers 1, 2, 3, 4, where tier 1 is the highest and tier 4 is the lowest. Tier 4 demonstrates a rationale is actually a level of evidence of efficacy that most entrepreneurs can achieve if they have a relatively stable product, or even if you're a developing product. Because what that requires is for us to present a rationale to present a theory of change, a logic model that is grounded in existing research with plans of future research. I've often encouraged a lot of entrepreneurs to go through this because you're killing two birds at once. One, we can help you define your impact, and two, you can perhaps leave having a report that counts as evidence of efficacy at the basic level. The more advanced tiers of correlational or promising evidence, moderate or strong evidence, definitely are more time intensive, more resource intensive, and will need more deliberation and discussion considering the state of your product. At Recharge Studio on the EdTech Recharge website, we have hosted some worksheets to help you get started defining your impact. You can identify what are the key features of your product. How are you expecting users to use it? What are the data you're generating? What is the short-term outcomes you're looking for? And what's the long-term impact you're aiming? It sounds like a lot, but when you start breaking it down, which you could do using our logic model groundwork worksheet, it starts to become clearer. As you start this process, expect confusion. That's the beauty of innovation. So many ideas. Let's pin down which of those ideas we're going to pursue. Once we've defined our impact, the next step is to monitor it. There are many steps to monitoring, but to break it down at a high level, identify or break down your outcomes into key performance indicators with a shorter duration. Set a target for yourself for every quarter that works towards your impact, that measures it, that allows you to monitor progress. The second step is to share this plan. Share this plan with your stakeholders. Make it a community effort. Education is definitely not a single person's job. It does take the entire village, the entire universe to make this happen. Share it with your universe. And third one, through the monitoring process, keep in mind that we're monitoring to iterate. Our product isn't ever final. It's merely working harder towards the impact. The data that we collect for monitoring our impact should influence our product design, should help us evaluate, are we on the right track? So make sure that through this process, you don't lose your entrepreneurial drive. You don't lose your need for innovation. Keep that going, but just make sure it's targeted towards impact. If an efficacy study is in the future horizon for you, here are a few things to keep in mind. First one is to lay the groundwork. Ensure that you feel comfortable with your product market fit. In other words, you know which target market you're aiming for the specific outcome. Check if you've got a robust initial feasibility and usability study conducted. Is there any correlational data that we can use to test for preliminary indicators of efficacy? If yes, then your next question is, do you have relationships with your target customers that you can build? Build your capacity by building relationships with your target customers, whether they be school districts, corporate workforce, or even a large parent base. You also want to build relationships with different researchers. After all, researchers are human as well, and you want to be sure that the person conducting your efficacy study is someone that you can work with and is someone with the capability. A third piece is to check your treasury. What's your budget? How much are you willing to spend towards this? How important is this efficacy study in the grand scheme of things for your product? For some, it's a pre-requirement to sell into the district they're aiming. For others, nobody cares. So think through how important it is for you to do the efficacy study and how much funds that you have available for it. Or how are you going to obtain those funds to test for efficacy? So how can research help? Using existing research can help us build products with impact features, i.e., features that work towards impact. We can also start collecting appropriate pieces of data for two reasons. One, to monitor our impact and iterate our product as we need, and also collect data that can help drive both product and market decisions in a more intentional and strategic and resource efficient way. As always, we at EdTech Recharge would love to help you and support you through your impact definition, monitoring, and efficacy work. Just reach out and we're happy to talk. Signing off, this is Kripa Sundar from EdTech Recharge.